And with less than 20 days until the election, former President Trump is in the battleground state of Michigan. NTD's Washington correspondent Luis Martinez is in Oakland County, Michigan, with the latest from the Trump campaign.
And it is exactly that.
Yes, Steve,
really
we are here in Oakland County, Michigan.
Behind
you can see the stage where former President Donald Trump is hosting a roundtable. He is joined by Republican Congressman Byron Donalds and GOP senatorial candidate for the state of Michigan, Mike Rogers. The focus of today's roundtable is manufacturing jobs and how to keep them in America.
Home ownership among Hispanic Americans reached the highest level ever by far, and we cut taxes and regulations for Hispanic-owned small businesses and people.
Mr. President, are you going to get the no tax on tips signed into law?
Yeah, I think we will. I have another one. I was in Detroit the other day, and I said we're going to have deductibility of interest on car purchases, and the place went crazy.
Steve, before the roundtable began, I had the opportunity to speak with some of the participants in today's event. The first of them was Lily Pilot, a college student here from Michigan. Let's listen to what she had to say.
But I just think that it's important to show what you believe in and what you want for your future to look like, especially as a young kid. So yeah, I'm here today just supporting. I think definitely about inflation because I'm a college kid, broke college kid paying for groceries. So anything that he can talk to and talk about that, I think it'll be important.
I also spoke with Ramon Santos,
I don't know another country
born
that
here in
finds it
Dearborn, Michigan, part of the manufacturing industry, and from Hispanic heritage. His family came from Cuba right after the Bay of Pig invasions. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Well, this area is all manufacturing. I'm manufacturing, stamping, automotive, steel. President Trump's going to bring all that back to us instead of overseas. And that's what I think why everybody's for Mr. Trump.
And Steve, I also spoke with Linda Lee Tarver, a black woman who believes that the female vote will turn out at higher levels than polls are anticipating, in particular in favor of former President Donald Trump.
And I have not heard that many women saying they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. I think many of the women that I speak with, especially black women, are a little silent because they will catch grief by publicly coming out of the closet for Donald Trump. I think that that's where we're finding people are a little less overt in
countries all
Steve,
over
it's
the world
important to note that here in the state of Michigan, former President Donald Trump is leading in the presidential race, but it is the Democratic senatorial candidate Lisa Slotkin that is leading Mike Rogers. So there's a possibility that Michiganders are considering splitting their ticket voting for the president of one party and the senator of another party.
Is even more concerning is that we are inundated with.
More information is now public from special counsel Jack Smith's revised indictment of former President Trump. Smith is trying to keep the case alive after the Supreme Court ruled that Trump's official acts are immune to prosecution. Joining us now live to discuss the new evidence in Smith's case is former federal prosecutor Nea Romani. Nea, great to have you back.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Nea, let's talk about the timing of this. Trump tried to delay this filing until after the election. His team argued that the judge should wait to release both Smith and Trump's filings at the same time. As a former federal prosecutor, is it routine to make filings like this available to the public when the case is still ongoing? And more importantly, could it have waited until after the election?
Steve, it is routine, and judges aren't supposed to make decisions for political reasons. And Judge Tanya Chutkan in D.C. said that were she to delay the unsealing of these appendices, that may be political in and of itself. So obviously, this case has taken a very long time. Some of it is Jack Smith's own doing. He took a long time to file it. And of course, Trump's lawyers have done an excellent job delaying the case on procedural grounds. They've scored some big wins in the appellate courts, particularly the Supreme Court. And of course, now Smith is trying to argue that all this conduct is personal and not official, because of course, the latter is subject to presidential immunity.
Now, Jack Smith filed this new indictment as a way to sort of circumvent the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. From what you've seen, do you think he's able, he'll ultimately be able to get around the Supreme Court on this?
I do think he has enough to get to a jury. He has a favorable judge in Judge Chutkan. She's certainly she's not like the judges in South Florida, for instance, who have ruled in Trump's favor and dismissed the case. This is someone that has been relatively on his side. So the question is, of course, does Trump win in November, in which case the case has to be dismissed? I mean, it's well established that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. But if Kamala Harris wins, the question is, has Smith alleged enough personal acts to get to a jury, to get past that motion to dismiss, to get past the Supreme Court? That's why you see this new superseding indictment. It doesn't talk about the Department of Justice. That's all official. It even names Mike Pence as Trump's running mate, not the vice president, not the president of the Senate. And it discusses communications with family members, personal lawyers. So I do think there's enough there to get past that motion to dismiss and get it to the next phase.
Now, based on all of what you've seen, what has been made public, what would you say is Jack Smith's strongest point? And to that end, what is Trump's best defense?
Well, Trump's best defense has always and will always be political, to win the election. And then short of that, to get the case dismissed in the United States Supreme Court, because he has a favorable 6-3 majority there. Short of that, to defend the case at trial, I think Trump, if it gets that far, Trump will have to argue that he genuinely, even if it was unreasonable, he genuinely believed that this election was stolen, and he was exercising his rights as commander-in-chief to audit the results and investigate election fraud. That, of course, would arguably be official and wouldn't be subject to prosecution because of the Supreme Court's decision. And of course, it's very hard to get a 12-0 guilty verdict in what would likely be the most politically charged prosecution in American history. Jack Smith would really have to thread the needle here, overcome many legal and procedural hurdles, the first being the election, then the Supreme Court, then the motion to dismiss, which will inevitably be filed, and of course, ultimately to a jury. So if I were a betting man, notwithstanding the merits of the case, I think Trump has many paths to victory here.
Nema, just briefly to your first point that you made there, is it fair to say that if Trump gets reelected, the case gets tossed out?
Absolutely. It's well established under the Department of Justice's longstanding policy. And there's memoranda in the Office of Legal Counsel that the sitting president can't be prosecuted. So both in D.C. and in Georgia and Fulton County, even though it's a state case, that logic would apply. The cases would have to be dismissed. And of course, Trump could even, of course, appoint an attorney general who would fire Jack Smith, but that wouldn't even be necessary. It's pretty well established that if Trump wins in November, these prosecutions will all be dismissed.
Former federal prosecutor Nea Romani, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
And Vice President Kamala Harris attending multiple events in the swing state of Michigan as well. NTD correspondent Jason Blair joins us from Oakland County, where Trump was also just moments ago in Michigan. Jason, talk to us. What's the latest from the Harris-Walz campaign?
Yeah, hey, Steve. I'm here in Oakland County, where Harris will be making her third stop of the day. She'll be speaking within about an hour over here. And earlier, she was over in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She was accompanied by Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow. And I do have a clip from her talk earlier today. Have a look.
And we will invest in the industries that built America, like steel, iron, and the great American auto industry.
Harris also spoke with reporters while she was in Grand Rapids and commented on recent events in the Middle East.
Well, my message remains, first of all, we have got to end this war. And I think that what has happened now with the killing of Sinwar creates an opportunity for us to end this war and bring the hostages home. And I think everyone wants this war to end, and this is an opportunity to actually get there.
This is Harris's 7th visit to Michigan on her campaign. Before coming here to Oakland County, Harris is in Lansing, Michigan, meeting with union workers. There are basically 6 Michigan counties that will likely decide who ultimately wins the state's 15 electoral votes. So it's not too surprising to see both candidates repeatedly coming to the same areas while campaigning here in the state. For instance, both Harris and Trump have events today in Oakland County. Trump will also be down in Wayne County later on, which includes Detroit. Harris is also scheduled to go there tomorrow to meet with religious leaders which is also the same day that early voting starts in the county. And probably the biggest toss-up county is going to be Saginaw County. For example, back in 2020, President Biden won the county by only 300 votes. And then back in 2016, former President Trump won the county by only 900 votes. So that is one to definitely keep an eye on coming this November.
And the stakes in Michigan couldn't be higher after what we saw in 2016. Hillary Clinton, I think you could say, even Bill said it, deeply regretted they didn't spend more time there. Obviously, Vice President Harris leaving no stone unturned, spending a lot of time there right now. Michigan, Jason, is a big union state. I understand the Harris campaign is also having some challenges in that area.
Yeah, that is true, Steve. Polls have been showing that Harris has not been doing as well as, for example, Biden did back in 2020 with unions. For example, the campaign has not gotten key endorsements like we saw with Teamsters. And then also, more specifically here in Michigan, the campaign was hoping to get an endorsement by the Michigan Firefighters Association Union. However, just a few days ago, they also announced they will not be backing any presidential candidate, which is in line with their larger counterpart, the International Association of Firefighters, who not that long ago said they will not endorse any candidate as well. Steve?
NTD's Jason Blair live in Michigan. Thank you, Jason. And tensions are high after Israel killing the Hamas leader. The U.S. hoping this will bring Israel closer to ending that conflict, but a Hamas official suggesting this might not be the case. NTD's international correspondent, Arian Pazdar, has an update.
Thousands of demonstrators rallied in Yemen on Friday. They commemorated Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, who was killed by Israel this week. Most of the demonstrators are supporters of the Houthis.
Sinwar has prepared for martyrdom, and behind him are many great leaders who are ready to take on the role of the Hamas movement.
Demonstrators, including children, could be seen holding rifles. Others waved Palestinian and Lebanese flags. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin addressed NATO on Friday. He says he hopes Israel uses the opportunity to end the conflicts with Iran's proxies in the Middle East.
Our top priority is the 101 hostages still kidnapped in Gaza, including our own American hostages.
But the chief negotiator of the Hamas terrorist group said that the hostages won't be released until Israel completely withdraws from Gaza. He also says he wants Hamas prisoners to be released by Israel and says that Hamas will continue to exist. This is the exact opposite of the stated goal of Israel's operation, which is to eradicate Hamas.
While this is not the end of the war in Gaza,
President Biden acknowledged that reaching a ceasefire in Gaza won't be easy.
We think that there's a possibility of working for a ceasefire in Lebanon, and it's going to be harder in Gaza, but we agree that there has to be an outcome.
Former President Trump also says he hopes for a ceasefire. He says he'll talk with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu soon. Family members of hostages are still hopeful that progress will be made now.
So I really believe that now we have a real chance to seal a deal. You know, I don't care about payback or revenge. I just want my brother back.
And Israel released this drone footage. It appears to show the last moments of Sinwar's life. A man is seen sitting in a destroyed room. The video shows him throwing a stick at the drone. Israel says the military then fired an additional shell at the building, killing Sinwar. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
And later in the show, a former member of the Israeli Knesset will be joining us with analysis. And a nationwide blackout. Roughly 10 million people in Cuba are left in the dark after a failure at the island's major power plants. The outage comes as residents are already struggling with a shortage of resources. The communist regime has ordered a string of strict energy-saving policies this week. That includes canceling schools from Friday through the weekend, closing recreation centers, and telling workers to stay home. Cuba is no stranger to an energy crisis. The island has experienced several blackouts due to aging infrastructure since the 1990s, plus a fire at a fuel facility back in 2022 that destroyed 40% of the country's main fuel shortage structure. Officials say they don't know how long the outage will last. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.